So hello everyone, I would like to officially welcome you to AmeriCorps VISTA in your first webinar of your pre-service orientation, launching your VISTA service. My name is Jessica Birch.
And I'm Ann Oti. We'll be your hosts from VISTA headquarters in Washington, D.C. Here is what we hope you'll get out of the webinar. By the end of the webinar, we'd like you to be able to describe the mission of VISTA and outline its programming principles, show how individual VISTA assignments relate to the VISTA mission, describe what the PSO Blend is and participate fully in it, and enter into your VISTA service well informed.
So before we get started with those goals that Ann just mentioned, Ann and I and all of us here from VISTA just want to say welcome. Welcome to AmeriCorps VISTA. You're about to join a national movement with a very rich history. In this webinar alone, there's 127 of you representing over 29 states. This month, about 230 VISTAs will be starting service. And right now, more than 5,000 VISTAs are serving in rural and urban areas all across the 50 states, including several territories and tribal nations. Volunteers in Service to America, which is VISTA, so we use that acronym VISTA, has been supporting and at times leading the change for social equity. And for more than 50 years, our strength comes from the talent of our members and their motivation and their energy. And that's soon to be you. So I want to thank you for stepping up and sharing your skills and your passion with us and with your community. So as I mentioned, it's an honor for me, it's an honor for Ann, and it's an honor for all of us here at VISTA to welcome you on behalf of the program. I hope you feel that warmth. I know it's hard over this digital thing here through the computer. I hope Ann can feel it. We're looking at each other. And we hope that we can help you support your fellow VISTAs. And that's not only through this orientation and through this webinar, but throughout your entire service. And we hope that we can help you facilitate some connections with each other. So as we're getting to know each other and making each other feel all warm and fuzzy, let's take a look at a few milestones in our history, in VISTA's history, that have really led us to this moment. So in 1961, President John F. Kennedy established the Peace Corps and rejuvenated from Roosevelt's New Deal the idea of a corps of volunteers with a living allowance and training support. In 1963, President Kennedy, in an address to Congress, said, "The overseas success of our Peace Corps volunteers, most of them young men and women carrying skills and ideas to needy people, suggests the merit of a similar corps, serving our own community needs. As the idealism of our youth has served world peace, so can it serve the domestic tranquility."
In 1964, President Johnson created the Office of Economic Opportunity, and within that office established, among others, Senior Corps, Job Corps, Head Start, and the true bearer of the legacy, VISTA. Our first volunteers were assigned, as the newspapers read back then, to the hollows of Appalachia, to the slums of Hartford, Connecticut, and the camps of migrant farm workers in California. Johnson, whom you can see in this photo, said to those first VISTAs, which remains true today, "The initials of your organization spell VISTA. It is an appropriate name, where you will be opening up new vistas of hope for the poor, achievement for yourself, and greatness for your nation." Fast forward almost 30 years, and in 1993, VISTA joined AmeriCorps, which was created by President Bill Clinton, and today is part of a family of national service programs, including AmeriCorps State and National Grants, the Social Innovation Fund, AmeriCorps NCCC, FEMA Corps, and Senior Corps. In the 50-plus years of the VISTA program, some 200,000 VISTAs have served. So who are these alumni, you may be wondering? Well, Jessica and I, of course, as well as George R.R. Martin, the author of Game of Thrones, Senator Jay Rockefeller of West Virginia, Ray Magliacci from Click and Clack of Car Talk, Jay Gertie, the CEO of Land O'Lakes, Congresswoman Gwen Moore of Wisconsin. Those are just a few. But if you're aiming to be famous because you served in VISTA, you may want to rethink that plan.
And it is completely part of my VISTA plan to become famous. So I don't know what you're talking about, but anyways. So as our history shows, VISTA has worked for over 50 years to help bring communities out of poverty. So if you believe that you have a responsibility to bring an end to poverty and are committed to working within communities, then you've joined the right program. And based on the responses we saw in the chat activity at the beginning of this session, it looks like your interests and motivations are well aligned with VISTA. So seeing your chat comments earlier, we asked you while you were waiting and while you were joining, why did you join VISTA? It seems that many of you are attracted to the legacy of VISTA, even if you may not have known what our legacy is, and our anti-poverty focus. So just a few of these. Anne, did you see any real ones that stuck out with you?
Well, Linnea Warren said that she joined VISTA to better not only herself, but also her career outcomes, and her experience at VISTA would be a building block for her and the community.
That's really great. Mary here said that she joined VISTA to give back to her community and ensure that the organization I work with is able to ensure that children can be afforded equal opportunity. Also here, and I apologize if I butcher this, I'm so sorry, Tabranicia said, I joined VISTA to give back to my community and to make sure that all children are treated equal. I love working with children. So it sounds like Mary and Tabranicia need to become best friends during VISTA service. Your guys' ideas really line up well. Let's see here. What else has other people said? A lot of this is community focused. I saw a couple people here. Anne and Jocelyn here both said that they've served with AmeriCorps before. It looks like maybe AmeriCorps or State National, and that they wanted to be a part of VISTA too. They wanted to continue that national service legacy. So thank you, Anne. Thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you for everyone else who's joining us here, whether that's from Peace Corps, NCCC, AmeriCorps State National, maybe even VISTA before. And Anne, I know you joined it. You started as a VISTA, right? What made you want to join?
Well, I had studied public health in school, and I wanted to share public health resources with the community.
That's really great. I served, let's see, back in 2011, 2012. It's kind of aging me, I feel like. And I served in Alaska, served at a domestic violence shelter, and I wanted to go to Alaska, but I really thought domestic violence was a huge issue, and it's something that's still true to me today, and that's one of the things we find. We find that 80% of people who do VISTA continue national service throughout their life. So I think that's true. And I know you do community service. I know a lot of people that we work with do a lot of community service, and it looks like you guys all have a rich history in community service. So thank you for that. So as we move on here, we now want to get to why you're needed. It might seem like an easy question, but we want to just go over a few things. You're needed because each and every one of you is needed in your community. And a lot of you said that you want to help your communities. You want to bring them out of poverty. You want to help those in your community have a better life, better opportunities, and better access. So we want to just kind of show you what the needs out there look like. So now we're going to read some fast facts for you. So first, more than 1 in 5 children in the United States live below the poverty line. And according to a Harris Interactive study, this is the same amount of Americans that identify as vegetarians. So just think about all of you on this webinar who identify as a vegetarian, that you represent 1 in 5 children that live below the poverty line.
Among all children, 44% live in low-income families. That is the same amount of people who in 2015 visited Disney's Magic Kingdom and Epcot.
And do you have an idea how much that number is, like the actual number?
Yeah, it's roughly 32.6 million children.
Oh, goodness gracious. We also see that 2 in 5 children don't know where their next meal is coming from. And according to the National Restaurant Association, that is more than twice the amount of slices of pizza sold by Domino's on Super Bowl Sunday.
1 in 4 Native Americans and Alaska Natives are living in poverty. That's about 1.35 million individuals, and that is the same amount of doctors and graduate students in the United States.
We also see that 30% of veterans aged 18 to 24 are unemployed, and about 50,000 veterans are homeless on any given night. We do want to say, though, that number is coming down thanks to coordinated efforts. And this number represents, this number, 50,000, is almost 5 times the amount of Starbucks locations in the U.S. So just think how many Starbucks you see on a daily basis. And I feel like I see like 12 Starbucks coming into the office.
Yeah.
So that is 5 times the amount of Starbucks in the U.S. Shocking.
More than 1 in 100 adults in America are in jail or prison. According to the National Federation of State High School Associations, that is the same amount of high school students in the U.S. that play football, track and field, and volleyball combined. Also, the average age of children with an incarcerated parent is 8 years old.
So, as Ann and I mentioned, and as I'm sure all of you know, these are just a few statistics that give us a brief look at why what you're about to do as a VISTA is so important. And even after more than 50 years of doing this type of work, it still is something that's needed in our communities. Later on in the session, we're going to show you some impacts that your fellow VISTAs have had. But now let's take a deeper look into VISTA's mission and the principles that guide our work.
So we know that VISTA is committed to helping to bring people out of poverty, and that as we just saw, there is a need in our communities. But if someone were to ask you, what is VISTA's mission, how would you explain it? When asked to describe VISTA, this is our elevator speech, aka VISTA's mission. The VISTA program strengthens organizations that alleviate poverty through the mobilization of volunteers and resources. And in addition to our mission, there are 4 principles that underpin our program: ending poverty, empowering communities, building capacity, and creating sustainable solutions. Let's take a look at these 4 principles in more detail.
So the first, ending poverty. We kind of looked at this a little bit earlier, but every VISTA project and every VISTA member aims to end or alleviate poverty, one person, one family, or one block at a time. And as you can see, the statistics, even these other ones we have here, are sobering, if not shocking. For example, we do have the 1 in 5 that live in poverty. We also show that 97.3 million people are low income, which equates to about $47,000 for a family of 4. And 4 out of 5 people in the U.S. live in danger of poverty. That's almost 80%. That's shocking, as we said.
Empowering communities. In contrast to parachuting in and doing good things for people, VISTAs live among and involve community members in planning and carrying out the project. This is often facilitated by your sponsor, but strengthening and improving the community is our long-term goal through learning about values and beliefs, assumptions, community development principles, and principles of good practice.
Another principle of ours is building capacity. So VISTA's job, which is you, the VISTA, is to either increase the size of a project or increase the number of people who were touched by the project, or improve the efficiency of the project so that it takes less to perform the same work. Or it can even mean to improve the impact the project has on the community. I know the picture is a little bit small, so the image on the screen depicts grounded principles of community organization in the center, surrounded by self-determination, fairness, justice, empowerment, and participation.
And last but not least, creating sustainable solutions. Whatever you develop or create, be it a process, an IT system, materials, and resources, we ask that you develop them in such a way that people will want and be able to use them once you're gone, even after the last VISTA leaves the site. It is important to try and bridge the social, environmental, and economic factors together to create bearable, equitable, viable, and sustainable solutions.
So these 4 principles guide the community development for us. And community work requires coordination, even collaboration, and working together towards long-range goals. So as you think about the principles we just covered, which resonates with you? And why does it resonate? So maybe it's ending poverty. Maybe that really sits with you. In the chat, a lot of you said you wanted to help bring people out of poverty in your community. Maybe empowering your community is a passion of yours. You know, working with community stakeholders to identify needs and putting those needs into action with the help and support of the community, maybe that's your calling. And perhaps capacity building, maybe that's something that you were made to do. Maybe you see a project, maybe you can identify a plan to increase their effectiveness and engage more individuals and put that into action. Sustainability is also something that may have drawn you to VISTA. Maybe you have an eye for processes and developing them in such a way that they can be used once you've left. So I know that this is a big question, but which of these resonates with you and why? So we're going to give you a couple minutes here to write that in the chat. And Eric, thank you. Our colleague Eric Powell here has put in the chat which of these key principles resonates with you? I can say for my own self, creating sustainable solutions, I love processes. I love documentation. I love writing down what needs to happen and how it needs to happen. I love that. I love manuals, so that is something that really sticks with me. If I can kind of do that sort of work, something that I love to do. So that's definitely what draws me. What about you, Ann? Which one of these kind of resonates with you?
For me, definitely capacity building. I am a planner.
Planner.
I love planning.
Well, it looks like good. People are here. A lot of ending poverty, which is great.
Empowering communities.
That's true. Yeah, Audrey here said, I'm working to coordinate volunteers to help resettle refugees because I believe the addition of these new Americans into my community not only benefits the refugees, but strengthens our community as a whole. That's great, Audrey. Let's see here. Yep, like I said, a lot of ending poverty, creating sustainable solutions. Let's see here.
There are a couple ending poverty.
Yep. Let's see, Thomas here said he's having studied environmental management and sustainability. I most identify with the principle of creating sustainable solutions. We often discuss case studies for development projects, which were in part designed to alleviate poverty in that locality. That's great. Thomas, you already kind of have some knowledge of how to work that alleviating poverty. That's great. A lot of sustainable solutions. I like Jacob here. He says, even on my first day, I see a lot of processes that can be streamlined and put in a manual, and I have my supervisor's support to do it. That is like the perfect recipe. You see it, you want to get it done, and your supervisor supports you. You are golden right now. Let's see, Ann, do you see any other ones in here? I'm seeing a lot of empowering communities.
Same. For me, building capacity is very important, leaving an actual plan.
I love Lindsay here. Lindsay, she says, empowering community. She's like, I live in Flint, Michigan, and I would love to see this city make national news for something positive instead of the negative press we often receive.
Adeola Busari said, for me, is ending poverty. This is to educate and enlighten people. I can also create sustainable solutions because I am good in decision-making and solving problems.
Great. And Kayla here said, creating sustainable solutions is important because simply donating money or food may help someone for a limited amount of time. However, plans that can be carried out over time and reused to build efficiency will have long-lasting effects in that community. That's wonderful. These are great, and I love this. Kai here said, hey, Lindsay, I'm from Michigan as well. So important to for exposure to facilitate change. That's wonderful. Maybe you guys can, like, meet up and become VISTA best friends. Ashley here said, in my VISTA position, I will focus mostly on building capacity and creating sustainable solutions. My strengths include organization and creative problem solving, so I'm excited to see these strengths to help this nonprofit to increase and enhance their influence in my community. I love it. They're great. A lot of empowering communities. A lot of when people think VISTA, they think ending poverty, which is a wonderful principle, totally for ending poverty. I'm taken aback by how many of empowering the community. I thought ending poverty would definitely be the winner here, but this is wonderful. And we'll end here with Rocco. Rocco said, I believe the best solutions to address issues within those communities, as this thing scrolls and I can't read, come from engaged individuals who actually live in that community. Working as a mediator with community members can be more impactful than an outsider imposing what they believe is best for that community. That's great. As we said, and as the picture that when Ann was talking about, VISTAs really live within their communities and they work with the community. They don't parachute in and try to be the savior of that community. It's really important to get community buy-in. So that's wonderful, Rocco. I'm so happy that you said that. So, Ann, let's talk about their VISTA assignment and really dive into that.
Sure. So a key component that informs the work you will be doing is the VISTA assignment description, also known as your VAD. But how is your VAD developed? When a project wants to request a VISTA, or VISTA resources, which is you, the VISTA, they submit a project application. The application is developed between your sponsor, community representatives, and VISTA program representatives. In the application, the project describes the poverty-related need in the community, which relates to VISTA's mission, and outlines how VISTA resources would address this need through activities and other outputs. The poverty-related mission of VISTA and the needs identified by the community come together to create the project goal. Projects are typically 3 years, and you may be the first, second, or last VISTA at your project. From the project goal, your VAD is created. We and your sponsor use the VAD to account for your work and measure the organization's progress towards its goals. And like a work plan, it's also important to your supervisor to recruit, support, and coach you throughout the year. We recommend that you ask your supervisor for a copy of the project application. This will allow you to get a deeper look at what the community identified as its needs and hopes, and to better understand your VAD in the context of the overall project goal.
And going back to those principles and how your VAD really kind of works within those principles, you know, no matter which principle you have the most connection with, your work as a VISTA and your VAD and those things that you'll be doing will address all of those principles during your VISTA year. And it's important to know and it's important to understand that progress in this type of work is slow and incremental. And it's important to know that our work isn't just about fixing stuff. It's about sharing perspectives and skills. And while the results of your work as VISTA may not be apparent immediately and may not happen overnight, which at times can be very frustrating, once you step back, you'll be able to see the larger changes that have resulted from your work. So as we get talking about the VAD and the things you're going to put into action, what should your VAD actually look like and what does it mean? So VISTA assignment description, we love acronyms here. Ann just mentioned it. VISTA assignment description is the VAD, so we're going to use the word VAD. All VADs include the following 3 elements. First is a project goal, which, as we said on the previous slide, is usually derived from the goal statement in the project application. The goal should reflect the poverty mission of the project, as well as the activities that clearly show how you, the VISTA member, will build capacity, whether that's at the organization or within the community. From there are objectives, and those objectives describe what you will achieve by the end of your service year. And there's also usually milestones throughout your year, so maybe 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And those objectives should form a bridge between that project goal and the member activities. So what are those member activities? The third thing that all VADs have are those activities, and they delineate specifically what you will be doing as a VISTA. The activities are designed to add up to the objective, and the objectives are meant to add up to the goal. And by accomplishing the activities in your VAD, you help meet your organization's performance objectives, which contributes to meeting the community need, which is that project goal. Each of you has your own VISTA assignment description, no matter how many of you are serving at a project, so hopefully you have that now. So please make sure that you have that. You'll have a fieldwork assignment related to your VAD that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. It's a worksheet that will help you tease out those different elements in your VAD and will help you to use it effectively. And the fieldwork includes you and your supervisor so that you will have that guidance from the start and everyone will be on the same page.
So we said the VAD accounts for your work. So let's take a look at some of the things VISTAs have accomplished recently so you'll have a sense of what you might be doing. And these are the measurable, not the intangible, which are often the most interesting. In 2015, VISTAs built the capacity of more than 3,000 nonprofits and public agencies, secured $222 million in cash and in-kind donations for those sponsors. That's more than twice what Congress has given AmeriCorps VISTA to run the entire program.
Wait, can you repeat that one again? Because that one's like shocking.
In 2015, VISTA secured $222 million in cash and in-kind donations for those sponsors, which is more than twice what Congress has given AmeriCorps VISTA to run the entire program. Crazy, I know.
That's amazing. I don't know if there's any other agency that can say that, but that's pretty amazing.
You have those bragging points.
That's true.
In 2015, VISTAs also recruited, trained, and assigned 1.2 million community volunteers. That means for every VISTA serving in 2015, he or she brought in another 154 more volunteers to serve their clients directly. And just one more statistic. The National Center for Children in Poverty estimates 16 million children in the U.S., about 1 in 5, live below the poverty line. VISTAs made it possible for their sponsors to serve 2.4 million of those children in after-school programs, tutoring, and assistance in food security.
So, not to get all intimidated here, because those are some pretty sweet numbers. I know that 2017 to the 2018 class is going to be amazing. It's going to, and I know you started in 2015. I know,
those are my statistics.
Those are your statistics. We all bow down to the wonderfulness that is Ann, but we know that 17 is going to kick it. So we want you to answer this question. If you succeed in your service, what will happen in your community? So the impact, as you've seen, you make this year depends on you. It also depends on your community and your VISTA project, and to be quite frank, on good luck. So as you think about this question, type your answer into the chat panel so that we can all see. What impact do you hope to make as a VISTA? And by impact, we mean what will be the end result? That's more than really what your activities will look like, but what will happen as a consequence of your success? So like an example could be a sustainable volunteer program for the organization. Or maybe a consequence of your success would be a coalition of community groups working together better than they had before, just as a result of your effort. So what are some of those ideas? Put them in the chat. I know it's a big question, and Ann and I will read some of them out.
Diana says children will have a better understanding about how to transition from high school to the real world.
That's wonderful. I talk about that all the time. They don't tell you how to do your taxes in high school. They don't tell you how to do your laundry. I did know how to do my laundry, but they don't tell you any of that before you leave high school. So I applaud you, Diana. That's wonderful. Megan here said the refugees in my city will feel more comfortable in their host city and will be able to communicate with their children and community better, and will have some important tools for climbing out of poverty. That's wonderful, Megan.
Walter says, my community will know that success can come out of my small town, as well as show kids that success comes from underdogs, too.
Ooh, I love it, underdog. Was there like a cartoon character, Underdog? I think so. He's pretty cool. Yeah. Tina here said sustainable systems, a volunteer base, and increased community education and participation. That's great, Tina.
Brianna says students in my college will have less about hunger, I think less worry about hunger, and focus more on school, which really resonates with me. My VISTA project, I helped in creating a community garden near a Title I elementary school.
That's pretty cool. I know I never got to do a community garden in mine, but I always, Healthy Futures, Food Deserts, those sorts of things I think are really, you kind of don't know that they're there until someone tells you that they're there. Yeah. Linnea, I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, said skills will be exchanged. Time will be spent focusing on bettering the lives within our community without spending dollars on services. My community will bring back the idea of asking your neighbor for a cup of sugar. I love it. I love it, Linnea. I'm not your neighbor, but I will ask you for a cup of sugar. William here said veterans will continue to have a place where they can find employment, and the systems in place to provide these jobs will expand so that they can find the best jobs for our local veterans.
And along that theme, Raquel says that if she succeeds in service, immigrant workers in her community will gain skills to become more employable.
Great. Dana here says my job is to supervise 2 clinics that provide free legal services to those in poverty. If I am successful, these clinics will expand and more people will get the legal service they need to avoid eviction, get out of domestic violence situations, maintain social service benefits, and more.
These are really good.
I know. So we'll do one more here. Tommy here says, if I succeed, the VISTA, I'm sorry, you guys are chatting up a storm. I love it. If I succeed in the VISTA program, my community will be stronger and work together more. The kids will have more chances to do something positive. Great. So thank you all. Keep those coming. Just because we're going to move on to the next slide, keep them coming. We love it.
Okay. Since we're on a webinar, let's take advantage of one of the other features available to us. We'd like to hear from you again. So on the right of your screen is a poll about what you think VISTAs need to know. So please take a moment to answer this question. What do you think is the most important thing to know well at the beginning of VISTA service? A, the VISTA program, things like its mission, benefits. B, the community you'll be serving. Is it important to have lived in the community for a certain time before serving? C, the organization where you'll be serving. Is it important to have volunteered or worked at the organization before or to know its inner workings? Or D, the specific skills of your VAD, how important it is to have done similar work. And lastly, E, yourself, your values, strengths, weaknesses, and must-haves. Once you've selected your answer, be sure to click the Submit button.
And leave that up here for a few seconds because there's no right answer. Let's just put it that way. Ann and I are going to take bets here, though, which we think is going to stand out. But, you know, Ann, which one do you think is the most important? Or which, going in, if you were going to start VISTA today, which one do you think, knowing what you know now?
Knowing what I know now, oh, gosh. Well, I would say it's important to know a little bit about the VISTA program and the community that you're serving and the organization and the specific skills that you need and yourself.
I love it. Anna's very diplomatic in choosing every single option. I love it. That's a good one. I really think it's a combination of D and E, because like if you know the skills that you need and like do you know that you have those or that you can acquire them, that you have the desire to, I think those go really hand in hand.
That's true, that's true.
But let's see, it looks like the poll is closed. It's just calculating now and see what people are going to say here, what the overall thoughts are. I think people are going to say E. What do you think? Don't look at the answers, Ann.
I think that it will be D.
You think it'll be D? Okay. All right. Man, these polls are killing me. It's like watching watching paint dry. I can't even talk today. Oh, man, I win. Wow. It's yourself. A lot of people said yourself, but you know, it's closely behind D, which is your skills of your VAD, as well as the community. There's a lot of you know answers. Like I said, there's no wrong answers. Don't be shy. So, yeah, I mean, there's no right answer, and it's really good to know all of these. But depending on where you're coming from and what experiences you have, that might determine what you think that you need to know more about.
Very true. So before we move on, let's quickly review what we've just covered. We looked briefly at the history of VISTA and how it now relates to other national service programs. We then dove into the VISTA mission and its key principles and discussed how they relate to your VISTA assignment description, or VAD. And finally, we shared with you some of the impact VISTA members have had in the past year.
So now we're going to get on to what PSO is. The thing that you're enrolled in, this is the first thing. You get to spend great time today with Ann and I. But what exactly is this PSO Blend? So VISTA's pre-service orientation, PSO for short, because we got to have another acronym. Like any orientation, is designed to provide you with the fundamental information and resources that you need to start your service off well. So you're in an orientation whose 3-week curriculum combines online tutorials, webinars, and in-person training and action learning at your VISTA site. In other words, it's a blend of components that fall along the training spectrum. You get it, Ann? PSO Blend. I know Eric on here is loving it. Technically, the PSO Blend began with those self-directed courses you took earlier on the VISTA campus, and this webinar is the kickoff to a facilitated 3-week curriculum. But as we know, the PSO Blend can be difficult. And we want you to know that it is a classroom without walls. So we're not in a traditional learning environment. We're not sitting in front with 30 other people and a teacher in a room. What we really want to focus on is that this is action learning rather than classroom learning. And instead of a front-loaded learning program, the PSO Blend gives you an opportunity to apply what you're learning while you're doing it. Like service learning, our aim is to create time for you to reflect on what you're doing.
But let's be honest, pausing to reflect often runs counter to our culture. I mean, we almost all pride ourselves on our multitasking abilities. In fact, you're probably doing it now, texting, snacking, half listening, so the thoughts of stopping our activity for an hour or so to identify what we value and what lessons we will carry with us can be out of character. If you add our need for speed to this process, then we could really push your buttons.
And you're pushing my buttons already. Just totally kidding. But on the positive side, you're already at your site and you can bring real issues to the training. We're talking about your VAD earlier. We're talking about our mission. If you have a real question, you can go talk to your supervisor right next door after this webinar. And as I said, you can go to your supervisor and get project level information and answers in real time, which is a real benefit.
Your role is pretty simple, but not necessarily easy. Participate with an open mind and heart. Navigating the system and showing up is step one. Being authentic, communicating with the intent of being influenced as well as supportive is the second step. And like we said before, patience and reflection is not one of our cultural strong points, but they're essential to your success in the blend and in your service. Please take the time to learn about your assignment, your VAD, and plan your next steps. Draw on your facilitators and your class in addition to your supervisor and colleagues at site.
And along with this, we want you to be mindful and please meet the deadlines. All of your assignments, the deadlines and sessions are outlined in the guide to entering VISTA service that you received prior to starting service. And it's also going to be in your online classroom. We're also going to review them in a second. We recommend that you mark these on your calendar and set a reminder for yourself to ensure that you meet the deadlines. An email with instructions on how to put these on your calendar was sent to you last week. We don't, our whole purpose of PSO is to help you succeed, and we want you to get the information from PSO that you really need to be the best VISTA possible. With that being said, failure to complete the work associated with Blend can result in your removal from service, which we absolutely hate to do. We know that you're going to be doing a lot of things to help your community. They need your assistance. They wouldn't have requested you otherwise. So please don't let missing a PSO assignment, not showing up to something, be the reason that your community loses out on a VISTA. So please make sure to get those done. Just a note about your onboarding courses and forms. I sent an email out to people who were missing something today. Everything needs to be done by the end of the day today. It should all be done by now, but if not, you have until the end of the day to complete your assignments. That means like your direct deposit, your terms and conditions course. If you received an email from me today, that means you were missing something. If you didn't receive an email from me today, it means you're good to go. We want to be able to pay you, and we need that information to pay you, so please let us pay you.
Now that you know what PSO Blend is and what is expected of you, let's take a look at the PSO Blend calendar so you can see what's coming up in the next couple of weeks.
So, as I mentioned, last week you completed your onboarding forms in your My AmeriCorps account and the tutorials on the VISTA campus. We built the curriculum based on you having carefully reviewed those tutorials. We don't want to waste your time reviewing what we've asked you to review, and we also don't want you to be thrown out of the program because you didn't understand the rules, or that next April you're facing state taxes because you didn't understand the tax implications of your benefits. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to hold you responsible for having read and accepted the terms, benefits, and conditions of service. If there are aspects of your service you do not understand, the next 2 days is the time to raise those questions. We are going to have a session that talks about benefits and terms and conditions on Wednesday. So you can raise those questions with us then. Or you can raise them with your supervisor, whether they're about your project or assignment, or if they're about your benefits, either with us on that webinar or the VISTA Member Support Unit via the National Service Hotline. That said, as I said, on Wednesday we're going to talk more about this. We're going to talk about your living allowance, health care, and the education award, those 3 big ones that we usually get a lot of questions about. But we're only going to do that very briefly, and then we're going to point you to those the resources that you can find to get more details about them.
Today marks the beginning of the first week of your PSO Blend and your first day of service. And look, here we are on that webinar. Towards the end of this webinar, we will administer the Oath of Service, which is your official entrance into VISTA. You should have been given the Oath of Service form by your supervisor today to sign and return. If you haven't, we'll post the link in the chat later in a little bit where you can find the oath and print it out. Your supervisor will also give you 2 fingerprint cards with instructions. The oath needs to be signed and returned today. The fingerprints need to be completed and returned within 30 days, but the sooner the better. Fingerprints are needed, as you know, to conduct a criminal background check.
That's right, Ann. And what Ann isn't telling us right now is that she does a lot of those fingerprint things. So you're going to want to be Ann's best friend by getting those fingerprints in on time. Also during this week, your supervisor is going to provide you with an on-site orientation and training. This training will introduce you to the organization and the community you're serving and discuss your VISTA assignment, which is essentially your job description. And as you can see on the calendar, while the due date for your first fieldwork assignments isn't until Sunday, March 19th, you'll need to start these assignments prior to Sunday in order to ensure that all elements are completed. So what's due on Sunday is the comprehension check quiz. It kind of tests your knowledge about what you learned in your pre-work and on this webinar. Your minute introduction. This activity guides you in creating a very short video to introduce yourself and your VISTA role to others. We'll also have the How Poverty is Measured assignment, which is a fun video that explains how the official poverty rate is determined. And then last but not least is the VISTA assignment worksheet, VISTA assignment description worksheet, which we're going to get to in a little bit more detail.
So we want to take a quick minute to discuss the VAD worksheet assignment. The VAD, as we've said, is your roadmap to your VISTA year and identifying how your project's goals and your VAD's objectives and activities relate to the overall project goal as well as the mission of VISTA is key to your success. We recommend that you download this worksheet as soon as you get the login instructions for your classroom, which will be coming after this webinar, and work with your VISTA supervisor to complete the worksheet.
That's right. As you can see, it asks you questions such as, what's your project's focus area, and what skills do you bring to the assignment, and what do you really need to develop? A lot of good things in this worksheet. Your second week of PSO Blend starts with the submission of the assignments that we just discussed, and on Wednesday you'll have your first virtual meetup. Virtual meetups are made of about 30 of you and a facilitator. You'll explore what you're learning about within your organization and your community and take a closer look at that VISTA assignment description. In addition to the meetup, you'll develop a community profile, which is a fascinating process that you can use in guiding your work. And you'll also take the 13 lessons about poverty as a way to integrate you into the heart of VISTA, which is all due on Sunday, March 26th.
Your third week of PSO Blend starts with the submission of the assignments that we just discussed. In week 3, you will again gather and reconnect with your online classmates in a virtual meetup. On Friday, you'll submit fieldwork pertaining to your on-site orientation and training, which is given to you by your supervisor to help you understand your community, your VAD, your service site, and more. And then you're finished with PSO Blend.
Woo, woo, you did it. Quick 3 weeks, guys. It's going to speed on by. So on a technical level, which we understand can be challenging, we're using 3 systems or platforms to conduct PSO Blend. The first is the VISTA Campus, which you used for your online tutorials, WebEx, which you're in right now for these live webinars, and then the online classroom, which you'll visit later. And that's where you'll do your assignments, that's where you'll do your virtual meetups, you'll do all of that. The technology isn't necessarily hard, but we want you to be aware that there are 3 systems and each has its own web address and its own function. We have a lot of people who are trying to join the classroom, but they're on the VISTA campus, and it just can cause a lot of confusion.
As we mentioned, you're going to be a part of a small group of VISTAs in a facilitated online class. You'll submit your fieldwork assignments and join your virtual meetups in the classroom. The online class is a learning environment with an opportunity to share and develop your ideas and experience with a facilitator in a small group through regularly scheduled virtual meetups and class forums. Developing a connection with the VISTA community is challenging in a virtual environment, and connecting and feeling supported by people involved in work like yourself demands more of you when communicating from a distance. The classroom with its meetups and forum is the first step in connecting.
But, like, how do I log into this classroom? Like, you haven't given me any information about it. I'm looking through all my stuff. I'm really studious, and I know everything, and I just don't know where this is. Well, I'm happy you asked, because we haven't given you that information yet, so no worries. Right after this webinar, you're going to receive an email with step-by-step instructions for logging into the online classroom. Remember, the classroom site is not the VISTA campus. The email will be sent to the address in your my.americorps.gov account. Please take a look for it and take a minute to log in today. It's really important to know that it's the email that's in your account right now. So if you started today and you're like, hey, I got ann@habitat.org is my new email address, I'm going to search there. It's going to go to your Gmail account, whatever you have listed in your My AmeriCorps, so make sure to check that. Messages from your facilitator and VISTA colleagues and your coursework are all located on that site. If you do have trouble logging in, if you get those instructions and you're like, hey, I totally don't understand, I tried it and it didn't work, or if you just don't get those instructions, we are here to help you. So you can visit vistacourses@educationnorthwest.org. You can email them and they will assist you.
If you need to get support during your PSO Blend, please email vistacourses@educationnorthwest.org if you have any trouble logging into your online classroom. You can also send other technical questions to this address, or better yet, once you're logged in, post to the Technical Questions forum in your online classroom. That way, if the question is one that your classmates also have, they'll be able to see the answer too.
Oh, Ann, you're just so smart with that little technical forum.
I'm just trying to be helpful. Your facilitator for help with the curriculum, your supervisor and VISTA leader are a good contact, if you have one, for questions about your project or VAD. And the National Service Hotline is great for questions about the VISTA program, policies, benefits, and requirements. And if none of those help, you can always contact your state office.
That's true. When in doubt, contact the state office, but those other avenues should help you out. So there are a few immediate actions that you will need to take right after this session as they affect your benefits and might prevent us from entering you into the program and paying you. Ann wants to pay you. I want to pay you. We all want you to get paid. So please, remember, if you're missing any onboarding forms, direct deposit, terms and conditions, do that by the end of the day today. Also, change from the end of service stipend to the education award if you're unsure of which of those you want. So we didn't touch on this in this webinar, but in the benefits section of the VISTA campus, you should have seen two options explained around end of service. One quick thing we want to touch on about this. If you have selected the education award for your end of service benefit, you can change it to the end of service stipend up until your 10th month of service. However, if you select the end of service stipend now, you can never change it to the education award. That's like a real never. Like, it's not like a kind of never, it's like a never, never. If you're not sure which benefit you want, you don't know if you're going to go to grad school, you don't know what you're going to do, we recommend you select the education award now, as you'll still have time during your service to change it. If you've already selected the stipend, if you're panicking at this moment while you're on the computer, like, oh my gosh, I selected the stipend, I don't want it, you have until midnight tonight to change it. So just make sure after this webinar that you make that switch. And last but not least, well, actually, there's two last things. Log into your online classroom. Those instructions, as I said, are sent to you after this webinar. And finally, because Ann will love you, get your fingerprint kit and get them done this week if possible. Your supervisor should have your fingerprint kits.
As Jessica said, your supervisor has fingerprint cards, or should. Each person gets 2 fingerprint cards and instructions. If you haven't already received these items, you will need to talk with them to get the packet of information. You are responsible for getting fingerprinted and submitting your fingerprints to us at VISTA headquarters. The cost of fingerprinting varies, and the VISTA program is providing you with a $25 fingerprint subsidy included in your first living allowance payment. You do not need to submit receipts to receive this subsidy. Please, please, please get fingerprinted as soon as possible. It may take some time to find fingerprinting locations and get them done, so we suggest that you plan to get your fingerprints done during this first week of service. You may need to ask your supervisor or do some research to find out where you can get your hard copy fingerprints taken. The deadline for you to submit your fingerprints based on your PSO start date of today is listed on the screen, and it is Wednesday, April 12th. Failure to submit your fingerprints within this time frame could result in termination from service, and we really don't want to do that. So don't let that happen.
So you may be asking, like, okay, I know I need to get this done, but why? Why is this so important? So we do this as a way to protect the community members and volunteers we work with, yourselves included. So there are 2 convictions that will automatically disqualify a person from VISTA service. The first is any sexual offense, which means they'd show up on the National Sex Offender Registry. or any violence against a minor. There are two other conditions that don't necessarily disqualify you, but could be an issue. One is being on probation or parole or facing charges, and the second is failing to disclose any criminal history. So, as Ann mentioned, first you need to get fingerprinted. Second is, if you remember back when you applied to your VISTA position, you filled out that long application. We asked you if you had ever been convicted of a crime. Maybe you didn't disclose everything. Maybe you thought it was just 10 years back. Maybe you thought a DUI was just a minor traffic violation and didn't list it. Or maybe you were a minor when something happened and you were told it was expunged. If you failed to disclose any conviction, as I mentioned, even if you thought it was expunged, please fill out the criminal history questionnaire that's included with the fingerprint cards and send it in as instructed. If you have a string of arrests where the charges were dropped, it would be really appreciated if you listed those as well. It's not required, but it really does help us in our review. When the FBI report comes back, we will compare it to your disclosures on the application and on the form. And if everything aligns, you'll never hear from us about that. If there is a conviction that you haven't disclosed to us, it is grounds for dismissal, and we will have extensive follow-up. So while Ann, you're very pleasant, you sound wonderful on here, you don't want to talk to Ann about criminal history. No, don't talk to her about that. Talk to her about like puppies and rainbows. But this is important, please. Another thing that happens in these webinars is someone always types in their criminal history like, well, what if this happened? Please don't type that in the chat. If you say anything in here, I'm going to recommend that you disclose it. Just always disclose it when in doubt. But if you have any questions, just let us know. So now we're going to discuss the oath of service. You're just about fully official VISTAs. We're so excited. So you're ready to take the oath of service, and to do that, you need the AmeriCorps VISTA oath form. So hopefully all of you have your oath form. If you don't, I'm going to post that link in the chat right now. So make sure you have your oath form out, which your supervisor should have given you, but you can print it like I said. So I have instructions for filling out the form. It may seem obvious to you, but you'd be surprised on the things that people submit. So first, print your full legal name, which is what you put in your My AmeriCorps application. So if your name is Ann O.T., please don't put Ann the Man O.T. Like, I just need your legal name. I don't care about nicknames. Give the name of the organization that is sponsoring your VISTA project, which is likely the organization where you're serving. So Victor here is with Habitat for Humanity. Put the city and state where you're serving. If you don't know that, I can't help you with that. Also, your first day of service is today. So that is 3/13/17, the day before Pi Day, 3/13/17. And you want to list the name of the CNCS official who is administering the oath to you, which is Ann. So just Ann. Ann right there. You don't have to put her full name. Just put Ann. So don't do anything else. Don't write anything else. We're going to give you more instructions about the oath.
All right. Now that the logistics are out of the way, let's consider the oath you're about to take, because you shouldn't take it lightly. This is the same oath taken by all federal employees up to and including the Vice President. The President's oath is a little different. So our oath includes the phrase, to defend the Constitution of the United States. Defend. This is not a call to arms. For some in some positions, it may be, but for most of us, defense of the Constitution may be just the opposite of using arms. The Constitution is not an administration, not even a flag. Rather, it embodies the principles that elevate us from a loosely organized group on the North American continent to a civil society. We're pledging to defend the document that contains our civil rights. Against all enemies. Enemies. Let us all as community builders, as change agents, and simply as citizens, choose our enemies carefully. More often, an enemy is a reflection of ourselves in bad light. Build bridges before you make enemies, and we'll all profit. In the context of VISTA, of course, the enemy is what? Poverty. Okay, 2 more things about the oath. First, you may replace the word swear with the word affirm if you so choose, and you may also omit the phrase, so help me God. I want to recognize that since we're all in different locations around the country, scattered in so many sites in so many states, that we don't really have the benefit of hearing each other's voices as we recite this. But it's pretty cool to know that after taking the oath, scores of your fellow VISTAs are doing the same thing at the same time all across America. It may seem awkward to recite the oath out loud when you're alone in a room, but really you're taking the oath for yourself. So do it for you and make it count. Now, please raise your right hand and recite the oath aloud with me. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to do the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
Woo, woo, woo. You know what that means? You are officially VISTA members.
Yay!
I know. Everyone's clapping, too. It sounds pathetic when it's just my clap. But congratulations, everybody. You are officially VISTA members. A few more things about the oath that we want to make sure you get paid, and we want to submit this to you guys. So you're now a VISTA member, so please, you, the VISTA member, sign and date the form on the line in the white area. Do not write anything in the shaded area. Then hand it to your supervisor, as your supervisor will also need to sign the form where it says witness to confirm that you took the oath and that it was administered by Ann. Some of you may say, my supervisor's left for the day, my supervisor's out of town. Someone in the office needs to witness your oath so they can sign it for you on the witness line. Once you and your supervisor have signed it, please scan a copy of your oath and email the scanned copy of the oath as an attachment to the VISTA Member Support Unit at vmsu@cns.gov. Don't take a picture of the oath. It needs to be scanned. Pictures will not be accepted. And please put the subject line as oath, your first and last name, PSO Blend, and today's date.
Remember, print your full legal name, which I think you used in your AmeriCorps application. Give the name of the organization that is sponsoring your VISTA project, likely the organization where you're serving. Put the city and state where you are serving. Put today's date as the date entered on duty, March 13th. List the name of the CNCS official who is administrating the oath to you, which is me, Ann. Have your supervisor sign the witness section of the oath and email a scanned copy of your oath to vmsu@cns.gov with the subject line, oath, your name, PSO Blend, 3/13/2017. This must be done within 48 hours.
So get that going, guys. If you can get that signed and scanned today, that'll be amazing. So we want to know what you thought. On the right side of your screen, you're going to find a quick poll where you can share feedback about this webinar. We gave you a lot of information. We know it's your first day of service. We know you're taking it all in, but we want to be able to improve these webinars. We want to make sure that they give you the information you need to know on your first day. So please fill them out. We read them. We love them, especially when you say Ann and Jessica are the best. Get them a VISTA puppy. Really plug in for the VISTA puppy. But let us know because we really do take them to heart. We're also going to start with some Q&A if you have questions about anything we discussed here today. As I mentioned, we are going to talk more about benefits on Wednesday, so we will talk a little bit more in detail about that. But if you have any questions, please let us know. You can ask a question using the Q&A panel in the right of your screen. And I'm also going to ask the operator to jump on the phone and let us know how to ask a question by phone. So Keisha, are you there?
I am here. Okay.
Great. Can you just let us know how to answer or ask a question over the phone?
Okay, yes. At this time, the question and sessions, are you ready to begin your question and answer session now?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll instruct you on how to do that. At this time, we'll begin the question and answer sessions of the conference. To ask a question, please press star, then 1, and record your name clearly for question introduction. Again, to ask a question, press star 1 and clearly record your name for question introduction. Thank you. One moment to see if we gather questions from the phone.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm looking here through the Q&A panel, just trying to see if there's any questions that we missed. It doesn't look like there's anything here. A lot of questions towards the beginning, but I think were answered. Yeah, I think there's not any questions here. Oh, someone did pop in. Jasmine, if my supervisor has signed my oath, do they need to send it in, or will I have to receive it from them, scan, and send it in? So Jasmine, your oath should be sent in by you. So if your supervisor signed it, they should just hand it right back on over to you, and then you should scan it into the computer. I mean, if they scan it, that's not going to be that big of a deal, but they should scan it, and then you should send it in to the VMSU. If for some reason you don't have computer access yet, or you can't access the scanner at your office, your supervisor can do it. Just make sure they follow those guidelines for submitting the oath, which I'm going to ask Scott and Joanne, if you could go back to the slide where we talk about how to submit the oath. Just make sure they submit it to the VMSU using that standard format, the oath, like your name, what PSO you're in, and all that kind of good stuff. Yep, right there, the oath, your name, PSO blend, and then your start date. So then you'd be good to go. We have another question here in there. We had said we have multiple VISTA members joining in the webinar from one login. How should their attendance be noted? Ray, I'm going to have to follow up with you afterwards. A quick note about logging into the webinars. Everyone should log in individually. It's so that you can all individually participate and that we know that you're in service and we can validate your oath forms. If there's an issue with logging in on one computer, please let me know. For the virtual meetups, you will need to log in individually for those. So please, Ray, I'll follow up with you afterwards. But for the Wednesday webinar, if everyone could be on their own computer or if that would cause an issue, please let me know. Khadijah here said, who is the CNCS official who administered my oath?
That's me, Anne.
Awesome. Anne, A-N-N-E, Scott answered it there, typed it in, thank you. Let me go to to Keisha, our operator, or is there any questions over the phone?
At this time, I show no questions.
Great. So I'm trying to see if there are any other questions here. I think you guys have got it. Yeah.
Here's one.
Yes.
What does CNCS mean?
Ooh, I love it.
That's a good question. So CNCS stands for the Corporation for National and Community Service, and we're the federal agency that manages the AmeriCorps program.
That's right. Yep, it's our agency. Most people know us by AmeriCorps. Not many people know what CNCS is, so that was a great explanation, Anne. Thank you. It looks like we might have another question coming in here from Angela. Angela, let's have you ask that question. So remember, what are those things that you have to have done by the end of the day today? You need to submit, to complete any of the missing onboarding forms that you don't have completed yet. You need to get your fingerprint kit from your supervisor. You need to turn in that oath form. Make sure those go in so that we can pay you. Let's take a look here. Will we be emailed with a notification when assignments are due? So Jane, that's a great question. Will you be emailed with a notification when the assignments are due? So you were sent, everyone in this PSO was sent last week a login to, calendar reminders. They were sent calendar reminders to add to your calendar to alert you when those assignments were due. Go back and check your email. If not, I would set up your own calendar reminders just so that you know when things are due. Especially for those Sunday ones, maybe set a reminder for 2 days ahead of time. So if you need anything at site on Friday, then you can get that pretty quickly. So definitely look at those calendar invites. Your facilitator will also remind you. They'll send out some email reminders about when those are due.
We have a question from Angela who asks, how do you disclose again? So that's a really good question. There are 2 ways you can disclose. You can send an email to vistafingerprint@cns.gov, or with your fingerprint kit, in the guidance, the last page has a member disclosure form which you can fill out, and then send that to us with your completed fingerprint card.
Great, thank you. Let's take a look here. Tabernicia said, where do I find our coursework? So you're going to find your coursework in the VISTA classroom. You're going to get an email here. If you haven't already received it, it's going to come right after this webinar. It's an email that gives you more information about how to log into your online classroom, the web address for that. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to come to your email that's in your My AmeriCorps account, but that's where you'll find all your courses. Let's take a look here. Someone had a question about where the oath is printed, and thank you, Eric, for putting that link in there. The VISTA oath form link is still there. Let's take a look here. I love this question, and I'm going to give you this question to answer. Walter, look at you. You got the best question of the day. What keeps you motivated to keep coming into work for VISTA? And I'm assuming you meant that for us, but anybody, please feel free to answer. And what keeps you motivated to come in each day?
Well, just knowing that here at the corporation we have lots of members who are out in the field doing such great work for our country. Like we mentioned, the 2015 VISTA members leveraged so much for the communities that they were working in, and it's really inspiring to help in managing and overseeing the program. How about you, Jessica?
Yeah, so for me, I think AmeriCorps and like CNCS is very unique in there's a lot of people that we work with daily who served as VISTA members or served in national service in one way or the other. And, for example, served in VISTA, I served in VISTA, a lot of our colleagues served in VISTA or NCCC. I think we're a unique place to work with that there's a lot of people who've had experience with VISTA. Like, for example, I don't know if IBM people are like, I come to work for IBM because I once owned an IBM computer. Like, I don't think that's a thing. But VISTAs and CNCS and AmeriCorps, it's a really tight-knit community. And for you, VISTAs, I'm sure a lot of your supervisors were VISTA members. They were in the same shoes you were in a few years ago. So it's really great to see the community that it builds. And we touched on it lightly, and we're going to touch on it a little bit more on Wednesday. You're part of a great community. You're part of our VISTA family. You're part of a national service movement. And it's a really unique movement, and it's a really unique opportunity that you are exploring right now. So that's really what I love about it. And, of course, our colleague Eric Powell, which is another reason why I come into work every day. Maybe IBM stands for Impeccable VISTA, because you are an amazing VISTA member, and you will be an amazing VISTA member. So I could not have said it any better, Eric Powell. One question did come in. It's back to the fingerprinting. Is would we be getting paid back for the fingerprint charges? Ann, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. With your first living allowance, you will receive a $25 fingerprinting subsidy to help you pay for those charges.
Great. And if any of you have not yet received your fingerprint kit, you should follow up with your supervisor, and if they've not received it, they should follow up with their state office. If there's any question, if you talk to your supervisor, like, I don't know who my state office is, let me know and I can find out for you. We'll make sure you get that stuff done. I'm going to go back to Keisha one last time. Keisha, are there anybody on the phone wanting to ask a question?
This time I show no questions.
Wonderful. Well, let's take a look here. Oh man, a lot of questions here. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the subsidy that you're going to get for fingerprints. A few questions came in here right now. Everyone gets a $25 fingerprint subsidy. Some areas it's way less than $25, some areas it's a little bit more. Everyone gets a flat fee of $25 to help offset the cost of fingerprinting, and that will come in your first living allowance payment. If you have any questions about that, we are going to talk about that on Wednesday, but I know there were just some questions and I wanted to address that. So as we leave you and as we let you get back to serving at your site and preparing to see in quotation marks and hear our wonderful voices on Wednesday, Anne would like to leave you with a quote before we say thank you.
All right, so thank you all for your participation today. I want to again welcome you to VISTA and wish you much success and leave you with this quote from Lyndon Johnson. On your idealism and on your success rests much of our hope for the final elimination of poverty in our American life. See you on Wednesday.
Thank you all so much. Have a great couple of days before we see you again, and thank you again. Have a wonderful day.